This entitled mother is making life miserable for everyone on this camp. When things don't go her way, she confronts the camp organizer and demands the menu be changed to suit herself. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. So this story was told to me by my brother when I was home visiting. It happened in 2015, at the peak of the gluten-free craze. At this point in time, my brother was pretty heavily involved in scouting, and was serving as senior patrol leader of his troops. Essentially, he was the kid in charge of all the planning and organization. I had been a scout in the same troop, and during that time, the adult leaders were a group of old Navy veterans. Between the time I had finished with scouting and my brother had started getting involved, the older adult leaders had been pushed out and replaced with the group of upper middle class parents. Now, once people reach a certain level of comfort in their lives, there can be a tendency to see shadows on the wall and make them out to be phantom problems. This was certainly the case with these parents. The camping venues became severely limited. None of them wanted to camp outside of walking distance of warm showers. The troop was essentially regulated to backyard camping, unless one of those parents decided to shake it up and live on the wild side for a weekend. This, among other problems, had taken a lot of fun out of scouting. Now, while I was in the living room of my parents' house, I heard my brother close the door hard and walk pretty quickly into his room. He's a quiet guy, and it was pretty easy to see that something had upset him. "Hey B, what's going on?" "I had a camp out planning meeting with one of the parents. It didn't go well. Do you want to talk about it?" My brother began explaining what had happened. The troop had taken on a bunch of new younger boys that year. Their parents had insisted on becoming more involved in troop leadership. One parent was especially problematic. They had a son who apparently fell on the autism spectrum. The kicker? He had never had a formal autism diagnosis. The parents self-diagnosed him based on his behavior. EP had her son on the gluten-free, casein-free diet. She believed that so long as her son was on the diet, his autism wouldn't manifest. Spoiler alert, the diet is junk science. There really isn't any study to support the gluten-free, casein-free diet. Now, my brother and I aren't monsters. Though there was no formal diagnosis, we aren't the kind of people to argue, and what you want to eat is your business. Problem was, EP was being really pushy about her kid's diet.
B, as you know, K is on a special diet for his autism, and I just wanted to run through a camp out menu with you.
No problem, EP. We've worked with scouts that have dietary restrictions, including vegetarian and kosher. Normally we ask that they pack their own supply of food separate from the main menu, because the other scouts might not be familiar with their dietary needs. I can help Kay carry and prepare the food you pack. We usually also cook one meal together for everyone following the restrictions, so that the other boys can understand different dietary needs better. I'd be happy to work on that menu item with you.
Okay, that's not acceptable. I don't want Kay to feel left out. You need to provide a gluten-free, casein-free menu for everyone. That means no wheat products, no dairy products, and I don't want any of the other boys bringing snacks that'll make Kay feel left out either. So when you're doing the shopping, keep that in mind.
Anyone who's been on a camping trip can see the difficulty here. No sandwiches, no pasta, no tortillas, no cereal bars, no oatmeal, no milk and coffee. It goes on and on. It's doable with substitutions, of course, but to people who aren't used to them, they can be really off-putting, and that's one of the last things you need on a campout, as eating enough calories is really important. Throw that into the mix with a bunch of teenaged boys, and it's a recipe for disaster. Anyone who has worked with kids can see why this is problematic and would lead to bullying. EP, most of the other boys aren't used to following a special diet, and they're probably not going to be happy if we can't make things like breakfast burritos and s'mores, and they're gonna blame that on Kay. Like I said, I'm happy to help Kay, but we can't design a menu with only him in mind.
Well, they better learn to be more tolerant. I'm telling you what will happen on this trip, and this is final.
EP, this is really...
Don't argue with me. Either you accommodate Kay, or the camping trip is not happening. This conversation is over.
So, long story short, the campout ended up happening. My brother and the other scouts planned a gluten-free spaghetti bolognese dinner, and they told EP that Kay was welcome, but under no circumstances circumstances would they provide a special menu, and Kay would need to pack his own meals. Of course, this sent EP into orbit, but there wasn't much that could be argued with at that point. I wish this story had a more satisfying ending, but Kay continued with the troop. In all honesty, a real good thing, because Kay wasn't at all a bad kid, and EP continued to harass my brother about minutia. Dietary requirements can be a really serious thing, especially if somebody has an allergy, but when it comes to speculation, or as they mentioned, the gluten-free craze, that's fine if you want to do that for yourself, but trying to force everyone else to do your thing, it's completely inconsiderate. Food is such an important thing, especially on a camping trip where everything else is made that little bit harder. Good tasting food can be that thing that comforts you and keeps you going, so to try and force everyone else on that kind of diet would have been a nightmare. We live on a farm with my parents, and it's already been 5 years since our neighbors moved here. We have a long driveway, and their house stands just by the driveway, which basically means we own just a half of it, and the other is a public road, so both of us can use it. They have been causing trouble ever since they moved in, blocking the driveway with their cars, treating their dog like crap. Yes, it doesn't include us, but I'm sorry for the poor animal. Acting entitled as heck and being jerks in general. To explain about the situation, the EB is manipulative. She tries to act all sweet and nice while talking people into lending her parts of their property, which she will destroy, cleaning her house, looking after her kids, and much more. To our luck, we ain't stupid. She probably thinks we are, because we have a farm and stuff, but farmers are not dumb, you know, so we were able to see her entitlement after a few accidents, and cut contact with her. And oh boy, this has spawned the EB in her, because she hates not being popular or whatever. Now, let's finally get to the story. So one day, I'm home alone with Dad. Mum and Sis are in the town, buying stuff for the animals. So we are just doing some groundwork, cutting trees, etc. in the garden, not in the fields. Suddenly, I see EB just behind our fence, staring at us. I stop whatever I'm doing and walk up to her. I was trying to be polite. You need something? EB looking angry as,
Yes, you need to cut your tree down right now. The leaves from your tree keep falling in our pool and my little boy can't swim in it. He's scared of the leaves.
At this point, I'm just trying not to laugh, because it's one of the most ridiculous things I've heard. Firstly, I don't give a crap. Secondly, you can't do anything about our tree, because it's 15 meters away from the fence. The law allows even only 10 meters away from the fence. And thirdly, the tree was planted by my grandfather, who has passed, and this is a memory of him we want to keep. Why would we cut our tree down?
Because I asked you to?
She gives a fake smile. We are not cutting down our tree just because of some leaves. You moved to the countryside and didn't expect leaves getting into your pool?
Is that it? Then see you at court for trying to hurt my child.
She angrily stomps off while muttering something to herself. I just shake my head and walk back to Dad and get back to work. About an hour later, the local sheriff shows up, so I go see what's up, and guess who is there with him? You guessed right, it's EB. Hi Sheriff, is there a problem?
Yes there is. This brat insulted me and threatened to hurt my baby.
She points at me.
Is this true, Kay?
Obviously doesn't believe EB a single word, but still has to ask. It's his job, and also doesn't want EB to call the department and insist on talking to his manager. Not at all. She was standing behind our fence and staring, so I asked her if she needed something. Then she started demanding we cut Grandpa's tree down because its leaves are in their pool. When I said no, she just screamed at me something about me hurting her child, suing us, and then walked away.
That's not true. I've seen you hurt your dog and also hitting it. That's animal cruelty.
I would never hurt the dog. It's funny you keep talking about animal cruelty while treating your dog like crap. Also, animal cruelty isn't the reason I'm wasting my time here. Let's get this done so I can get back to work. EB looking very angry, probably making up more lies in her small pea-sized brain. There was a long conversation when EB is trying to convince the sheriff that she is right, insulting me and blah blah blah. The sheriff speaks to EB.
To my knowledge, the tree is more than 10 meters from the fence, so I cannot help you in this. But if you have any other issues, feel free to call us again.
He then gets in the car and drives away. EB, angry cause none of her lies worked.
You are not getting away with this.
Then stomps off again. My fam still laughs at this story. She's just so dumb. Even if you live in the suburbs, your pool's always gonna get leaves and stuff in it. I don't see how somebody could move to the countryside and not imagine this happening. Even if they cut
cut down the tree, there's still gonna be stuff in the pool. But an entitled person is always going to make life more difficult for others rather than take personal responsibility for themselves. Also, what child is scared of leaves? I can understand maybe insects or snakes, but if you have a child who's scared of leaves, you should probably send them to a psychologist. To be a functioning adult, you're going to have to face a lot worse than leaves, so you're gonna want to get that one sorted out as soon as possible. I was probably 5 and wasn't very proficient with English since I had just immigrated from China and knew very little about the language when this happened. A schoolmate's parents invited me over to have dinner while my parents were out. There are a couple of things you should know from back then. Number 1, this was a very religious family, while my parents were atheist or agnostic at the time. Number 2, the kid and I did not like each other. We sat down to dinner, and as soon as everyone was seated, I took a bite like we did at home. That was when the mother reached across the table and yanked the plate away from me.
"In this house," she said, glaring at me, "we pray before we eat. We are not heathens."
I looked at my classmate to see what to do. I put my hands together like he did.
"Not like that," she screeched.
Apparently I needed to fold my hands properly. I did as I was told. The dad then proceeded to give what had to be the longest prayer ever. It probably wasn't long at all, but I was 5, hungry, didn't really understand what was happening, and had never heard a prayer before. After he finished, the mum looked at me and said,
"For stealing from God, you will wait until after we finish before you eat."
She then lectured me on how awful I was and how I was going to hell for not praying properly or knowing about prayer. Reminder, I was 5 years old. My classmate said he wanted seconds when he was done with his plate. She handed him my plate. I didn't get dinner. I started crying because, you know, hungry 5-year-old. She was screaming at me to stop crying. I was ruining dinner for everyone. This was when my mother rang the doorbell, and at the time, she could speak English fairly well, albeit with some mistakes, so she could understand most of what the family was saying. I jumped up and ran to her in tears. Suddenly, the family was all smiles and politeness. She told my mum I was picky so I wouldn't eat my food, so I was probably hungry. We got out to the car, and my mother asked what really happened. I was not a picky eater. I'd eat anything. Still will. I told her everything. My mother stormed out of the car, pounded on the door, and gave the woman a piece of her mind. To this day, I wonder what sect of Christianity they claim to be, because even though I'm not a Christian, I've known many for years, and I'm pretty sure God never said to treat someone else's kid like crap before. For someone to be a Christian, they need to believe that Jesus died for their sins and that he rose from the dead. And then if they believe that, they'll follow his commandments. So if someone like this woman is claiming to be a Christian, but doesn't follow the commandments, like the really basic ones, treating others how you would want to be treated, especially vulnerable people like children. Jesus did say you would know them by their fruits. I think it's pretty safe to say that if somebody claims to be a Christian, but then totally disregards all of his teachings, is not actually a Christian. That's like somebody who says they're a vegan because they read vegan blogs, but every second meal they eat is a steak dinner. This happened some weeks ago. It was snowing a bit that day too. In this story is E, the friend I was with, EM, the entitled mum, G, EM's daughter, and me. E called me one day to ask me if I wanted to go out and grab something to drink with her, and since I had nothing to do, I said yes. We went out and she got a hot drink since it was winter. I, however, was craving something else, so I bought an ice cream. So we went out and sat down at the bench outside of the shop. We were talking about something that had recently happened at our school. Then a lady and her kid comes up to us. By the way, this little girl was wearing all pink.
"Hi, my daughter was wondering what ice cream you were eating."
I was eating a multicolored one. It's called Rainbow. Wasn't that good though. Rainbow. You can get it at the store.
"Can she have a taste?"
Note, I always eat ice cream with the little spoon that you get it with. It's a habit I've had since childhood. Sure. Big mistake.
"It's good. Can I get one?"
"Of course you can, sweetie."
She looked back at me. As I said, you can get one at the store.
"We're tight on money right now. Can't she have yours?"
No.
"But she likes it. She's been so good all week and deserves to get one."
Lady, she said no.
"But ice cream is for kids."
I'm done at this point. E, let's go. As I get up, the EM backs away a bit. I'm 5'11". She was probably about 5'6", so it's pretty understandable.
"No, I won't let you leave without giving my daughter your ice cream."
At this point, I'm a bit ticked. So naturally, me being me, I threw it into the trash can that was beside us. Sure, go get it if she deserves it so much. Me and E walked, but not before hearing wearing this.
Mom, it was hers, so it's okay. I don't need it.
No, she's an adult. She should know better. And it's winter too. Such an irresponsible bee.
I honestly feel bad for the little girl. Submit your story to be read on the channel at voiceyherestories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.